everybody, and welcome to What Do Scientists Do? Today I'm joined by our very special guest. Could you give us your name and your pronouns, please?
My name is Margaret, and my pronouns are she and her.
So, Margaret, what kind of scientist are you?
I am a vertebrate paleontologist.
So, what's that? What do you study?
Vertebrate paleontology is the study of mostly dinosaurs, but we also study other prehistoric creatures that have a backbone, so things that have hard parts on the inside.
Cool. So, yeah, we were talking to Austin in another episode who talked all about things that don't have backbones and studying the fossils of those. So, you actually deal with things that do have backbones. What are some examples of creatures that you might deal with?
So some examples of creatures I might see in my day-to-day life is things like dinosaurs, like Parasaurolophus, if you know your dinosaurs, or things like TRex, which I personally haven't ever come across, but that's a pretty famous one. There's also different mammals like mammoths and prehistoric camels. Things like early amphibians, like little salamanders and different fish. So pretty much every kind of animal that we have nowadays in different forms, but also some ones that we don't have, like dinosaurs, unless you include birds.
Cool. So I didn't know that prehistoric camels existed. So now I'm just wondering about that. What's up with prehistoric camels?
Well, fun fact, camels are actually indigenous to North America, so they came from places like Canada and the States. And then a long time ago, there was a large land bridge, like a big kind of bridge made out of land that went between Asia and North America, and all the camels kind of walked across, and then they went extinct here in North America, and so now we only have camels on the other side of the world.
I did not know that. That's a wild fact for me. So besides knowing fun facts about camels, what else do you do in like your daily life and work?
Well, mostly I'm more of a technical researcher rather than a actual researcher. I do some research, but most of my time is spent in the fossil preparation lab, where we clean and make fossils pretty for research and for display.
That's super cool. So you clean and tidy up the fossils so that they can be displayed in like a museum.
Sometimes they end up sitting on a shelf for a very, very long time before anybody looks at them, but it always is good to get them out of that rock, and so that you can look at them to see if they're going to be significant for some kind of research, or if they're just going to be a beautiful specimen for display so that people can learn about them.
That's super cool. So what do you need to do in order to prepare a fossil?
So after a fossil is collected in the field, it's put into a protective plaster jacket. So it's kind of like if you break your arm or another bone, you get a cast that helps you heal. So we use similar kind of techniques to protect the bone from breaking, because they've been in the ground for millions of years, and bringing them out of the ground can sometimes cause them to fall apart. And so sometimes you use sticks and stuff to brace the bone as well, depending on how big it is, but usually it's just a nice plaster cast that once we get that back to the lab, you cut it open, and then you usually work from the bottom down. So the side of the fossil that you start at is the opposite side to what they would have seen in the field, which is actually really, really neat, because once you get down to that bone, you're actually the very first person to ever see that particular fossil, because it's been encased in rock before people even existed. And then, so you clear away the matrix, which just means all of the sediment and rock and sand or any other kind of dirt that covers the bone, and sometimes there's even plant roots and other fossils that are in the jacket as well. It's a bit of a surprise bag of science. And so once you get down to the bone, you have to be a lot more careful and make sure that you're following edges and making sure that you're not accidentally scraping the bone. Accidents do happen, but we try to be as careful as possible. And once you get that bone out of all of that dirt and rock, then you have to be very careful and make sure you're using as much glue as possible and just, basically coat that thing in glue to make sure it does not fall apart. And it can be cleaned up later, but we really are as careful as possible about gluing things back together.
How long does all of that take?
It depends on how big it is and how tough the matrix or the surrounding rock is. A lot of things from Dinosaur Provincial Park here in Alberta are in ironstone, which is a very, very tough matrix to work with. And sometimes you have to use things like air scribes, which are these little pin-like tools that shoot air out, and they hit points of weakness in the rock so that they flake off chunks. And they're very, very useful, but they can easily damage softer specimens if you're not too careful. So usually only advanced preparators get to use those. But normally I just use dental picks, which are just these sharp little things that the dentist uses to clean your teeth. And we steal them for our fossil preparation. Toothbrushes, water, we sometimes use chemicals to dissolve the stone and to dissolve glue if we put a little bit too much on there. And yeah, so it's mostly a lot of household tools that you can use for fossil preparation.
Yeah, so the people buying dentist tools from wherever you buy them from are dentists and fossil preparation experts, I guess.
Yeah.
That's really funny to think about. Do you have a favorite fossil that you've ever gotten to prepare?
My favorite fossil that I've gotten to prepare is probably a couple different ones, actually, all from the same dinosaur, but it's a set of limb bones. So like the hands, the forearms, the humerus, which is your upper arm bone, and then the sternum as well. So the whole kind of arm setup there, which is pretty neat because it usually comes in different pieces. And so it's kind of like fitting together a big puzzle once you're finished with it. And so my favorite that I've gotten to prepare is actually a research specimen for one of my friends who is doing her thesis, so her final project on this one specific dinosaur. My favorite part of the skeleton to prepare was the sternum, which is just like the breastbone of the hadrosaur, which is also known as duck-billed dinosaurs.
So what made working on the sternum and that upper body part so cool?
So it was very cool to work on that part of the dinosaur because that specific part of duck-billed dinosaurs is not found very often. There's only a few complete sets of breastbones that have been found in Canada that have been found together. And it's a very important part of the skeleton for figuring out how these animals lived and moved. So in movies like Jurassic Park and games and everything, so like you see duck-billed dinosaurs running around on two legs. But the evidence from studying their fossils actually suggests that these animals would probably have run around on four legs like cows or horses or something like that. There's a possibility that they were able to kind of rear up on their hind legs for certain activities like gathering food or, looking around, or even possibly short bursts of two-legged locomotion. Like there's some lizards who normally walk around on two legs, but sometimes they'll kind of rear up on their hind legs to run really, really fast. So there's a possibility that happened. But through studying the sternum and the limbs, we can kind of see that these animals would probably be walking around on their forelimbs, not with them raised up. They also had little hoof-like hands, which kind of tells us already that they were probably not using their hands for grabbing or fighting. They were most likely employed, much like a horse hoof, as a support system for the animal.
That's wild. So did we know that when we made movies like Jurassic Park, or is this like newer information?
It's been around longer than you'd think, like the knowledge that most dinosaurs that are related to birds. So there's the two different groups of dinosaurs, ones that led to birds, so like they're called theropods, which are like T-Rex and Velociraptor and more charismatic species like that. They almost most certainly had feathers, and that knowledge has been around for quite a while, longer than you'd think. But it's kind of the same with duck-billed dinosaurs and their posture. So it's been kind of a wishy-washy back and forth. Did they, didn't they? And it's kind of like that with a lot of paleontology. But the inkling that they have been running around on four legs has been around for a while.
Okay, so we just thought it looked cooler, and that's why we put more of that in like movies and video games and stuff, pretty much.
Yeah,
and like
probably.
And that, who knows?
And
like, do they always consult scientists? It's hard to know. For something
not
like
always,
dinosaurs.
but it was a popular theory for a long time that they were on two legs, and it is only recently that four-legged theory has become a lot more obvious.
So they were running around on four legs with a duck bill, so like a reptile platypus, almost.
Kind of, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really funny idea to picture. So you're saying that T-Rex probably had feathers?
It's quite likely that they had something like feathers. It probably would have looked a little bit more like hair, since feathers were just evolving. Early on in the evolution of feathers, they were not exactly like how we know them in birds. They weren't quite as pretty and full. They were probably more hair-like to begin with.
So, like a terrifying T-Rex, but with like baby hair.
Yeah, like peach fuzz. You would have been a little fuzz ball.
So just soft. Like if you pet them, maybe it'd be kind of nice, you know? If you go up, you pet the T-Rex.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want to pet a T-Rex, but you know.
Yeah.
Maybe a sleeping T-Rex.
So you heard it here, folks. You should pet a sleeping T-Rex. That's the official consensus. Well, that's super cool. Do you have something that you think everyone should know about dinosaurs or vertebrate paleontology in general?
It's super cool and everyone should do it.
Okay, fair.
You know, when I graduated from high school, I was told by one of my advisors that paleontology wasn't a real job, and that I would never find any work, and that it was basically just fun and games, and it wasn't real. Which is totally not true, and paleontology is a real job. So if you're a dinosaur kid and you love dinosaurs, never stop loving dinosaurs, and just, you know, keep going, because all paleontologists are just dinosaur kids who love dinosaurs, and that's all you need to be a paleontologist, basically.
I love that. Well, I think that's everything I have to ask. Do you have anything that you would like to plug, by the way?
I don't think so, other than when you start getting involved in paleontology, definitely get involved in fossil preparation. Not to be biased, but it is a hands-on way to keep your foot in the door, even if you're not thinking about doing research. It's a great way to just have a lot of fun and really get to know fossils, get to know the field. It's any opportunity to get involved, I would say go for it.
That's so cool. So can you get involved in fossil preparation if you're not like doing a paleontology degree? Is it a thing that volunteers can do, or is it more of a thing that you do through school?
I definitely did it through school. However, it doesn't matter if you have a paleontology degree or if you have a degree at all. Fossil prep, if you have a place that's near you that you can go and volunteer, usually they'll accept anybody willing to pick up a dental pick and pick at some sand for a bit. It's a great way to get involved with the community and to just do some fun science without any commitment, really.
Yeah, so sorry, it broke up a tiny bit there, but I think what you were saying is that University of Alberta has the Dino Lab where you can go and volunteer to prepare fossils. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Margaret.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me.
And as always, a big thank you to everybody listening. For more science fun, you can check out our past episodes at bit.ly/whatdoscientistsdo, or you can follow us on Twitter or Instagram at ScientistDoPod. That's also where we'll be posting a cool video of Margaret preparing some fossils if you'd like to check that out. Do you have a question that you'd like answered by one of our experts? Send us an email or a voice recording at whatdoscientistsdo@superstaff.ca, and your question might be featured on the show. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next episode. Bye for now. This show is made by Supernova at Dalhousie University, a network member of Actua. For more information on our summer camps, workshops, and more, visit supernova.dal.ca.